Thanks, guys. On behalf of the Mayor's Office and the Thames Festival, I'd like to welcome you all on board the King Edward. We're very lucky to have such a great boat. Now we're going to be cruising along Old Father Thames, and I'm going to be pointing out some of the more interesting historical landmarks and monuments that line the waterway. Now, of course, the Thames has been at the very heart of London since its founding as the city, the settlement of Londinium by the Romans in AD 43. I would actually like to just make a quick addendum to the safety announcement by the captain. He may not have been updated, but unfortunately, due to budget cuts across the UK for council funding, we're simply actually no longer able to afford adequate safety equipment for the boat. But I would like to assure you that life preservers and first aid kits are available for sale at the snack bar downstairs, along with a range of refreshing beverages and delicious sandwiches. So please don't worry. Now, I personally believe a great deal in safety. You know, I have a small child myself, so it's something very dear to my heart. I believe that we have a responsibility to make the world safer for our children. But, you know, not our children's children, because I don't think our children should be having sex. But to be honest with you, don't worry about it. I mean, the odds are in our favor without the safety equipment, because there haven't been that many maritime disasters here on the Thames. There was one interesting one. On September 3rd, 1878, the Princess Alice, which was a pleasure cruiser, collided with the much larger, here's the image, the much larger Bywell Castle, which was a coal cargo ship on the river, and the boat sank, killing 640 people, which remains to this day the largest number of fatalities in any peacetime UK incident, but chances are we should be okay. Interestingly, when the Princess Alice went down, many people died from the pollution in the river, not from the actual collision, because as you may know, history buffs amongst you, the Thames used to be incredibly polluted. Actually, not long before the crash, 75 million gallons of raw sewage, about an hour before the collision, had been pumped straight into the river. And there had been an industrial fire leaking turpentine, oil, and petroleum into the river as well. So most of the survivors died of very, very mysterious illnesses within a week of the crash. Now, unfortunately, this poor lady, she managed to survive the collision and the toxic waters, only to be killed later by Jack the Ripper in Whitechapel. Which just goes to show you when your number comes up, it really comes up. Well, it's interesting to think that pleasure boating used to be one of the most popular activities on the Thames in Victorian times, especially because the river was so filthy at the time. It's hard to imagine anyone wanting to do that recreationally, but just goes to show you that everything in the world is relative, of course, and we mustn't apply the patterns of the modern imagination on previous eras, because that's misleading. Now, in another example of fate catching up with you, like poor Lizzie Stride, the woman I mentioned before, in the Democratic Republic of Congo in 1998, an entire football team was killed by a freak bolt of lightning while standing on the pitch. It's interesting because the opposing team, which was the home team, was completely unharmed. And many people suspected witchcraft because it's not uncommon in Central Africa. Oop, that one was out of place, I beg your pardon. Not uncommon in Central Africa for teams to hire witch doctors to cast hexes on their opponents. It makes you wonder, if both teams are praying to God before a game, how does he decide who's going to win? I mean, which team does he decide to back? I mean, maybe sometimes actually Jesus really does save. You know, when I was a kid, I used to pray a lot, actually. I was a religious kid. I used to pray every night for a new bike. I really wanted a new bike, and eventually I realized the Lord doesn't work that way, so I just stole one and asked him for it.